everybody? We back up in here. Hella Flagrant, the podcast. It's your main man, Hella Flagrant DM. I'm in here with my brother, Sean B. Flagrant. Shawnee B, how you doing this week, bro?
Oh, man, loving sports. I mean, it's that time of the year, obviously. Football is at its high. NBA just finished a little bit ago. Lakers, obviously, championships. We talked about that in the last episode. And MLB right now has got the World Series going on with LA Dodgers and Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not rooting for the Rays, so it's not happening. I really have a hard time rooting for the Dodgers too.
Yeah,
I was about
to say. I don't know about that, man. I'm beat LA all day, but
I know. I am too. So this is a tough one, but we're gonna jump this thing off and we're gonna get right into NFL. Week number 6 had some very, very interesting games, some low scoring, some high scoring, and some non-scoring, and some all out. There was some bad football this week too. Let's get into it. NFL Week 6. What you got, Sonny?
Well, you talk about bad football. I mean, there's a lot of teams that just perform awful football. The Jets obviously come to mind. 0 points scored in the whole entire game. I wasn't mad at it because I had Miami's defense in my fantasy. But, I mean, that's just pathetic. We're going to talk about another team, obviously, the Cleveland Browns.
Woo! Man.
Baker Mayfield is got to be one of the worst quarterbacks for what he has been projected to be in terms of all his progressive commercials and Hulu commercials and he's not State Farm, that's Aaron Rodgers, but all these commercials that Baker's got. I mean, this guy came out and put out a stinker of all-time high, only 7 points for the Cleveland Browns in their loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 38-7. Yeah, it was bad all day. I think one of the first passes Baker had was a pick 6 to Minka Fitzpatrick. Awful. And then rounding out, let me start off. Another bad game, obviously, was the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron performed terribly. He came out the gate, 10 straight points for the Green Bay Packers and did not score after that. Oh, terrible game. And last but not least, let me go to those Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. Might have been the worst performance of all.
That was an ugly game. Like, that was just hard to watch.
Man, first game with Dak Prescott not being in the lineup, obviously. Andy Dalton, the redhead pistol, started for him and did not do a damn thing. Shame.
How many picks did he have?
I counted at least 3, personally. I stopped watching it because obviously I have Zeke Elliott on my fantasy team, who also had a terrible game. 2 fumbles in a row consecutive for losses.
That was rough.
Man, wound up with 4 points for fantasy, which is, as everybody knows, is off the chain low for Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, he usually gets you at least 17 points per game. But regardless, the Cowboys have more problems than anybody could ever know. Their offensive line is banged up. But,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So and you kind of touched on it. So we're going to get into a quick little segment here that I'm going to call Fantasy Flops. So based on all the action or non-action we saw this week, let's talk about a few players that flopped. And I'm going to get personal and start off with Odell Beckham. I had 2.5 points out of Odell Beckham, which, for those of you who don't follow fantasy, is ridiculously low for any position, but let alone the highest rated receiver in the league get you 2 fantasy points. That means he did nothing. And it's not 100% his fault. As you alluded to and we just spoke about, Baker Mayfield is terrible and cannot get anybody the football. And the Cleveland Browns have to sew that up. I mean, Odell did all this to get put with Jarvis Landry, and he wanted to be with his guy, and he wanted to be on, he wanted to get out of New York and did everything he could. Well, look at where you are. You're not doing much for yourself, Odell, on this team now because of the team, I guess, leader in quarterback position. And so that is a huge fantasy flop. And when you look at fantasy, these factors matter. Like, yeah, Odell may be a great receiver, but unless Jarvis Landry is going to keep throwing the ball to him, he's not going to get you any fantasy points. It's just not happening. Some other fantasy flops for me personally. Anybody that plays for the 49ers at the moment is a fantasy flop. I love my team to death. I'm a die hard, ready to go to the end. But right now, I can't count on you guys. I don't know what you guys are putting together, especially offensively. And if for whatever reason you have the 49ers defense on fantasy, just stop right now. Like, stop
Yeah.
it. Let it go.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fantasy flops, obviously, this week. It's kind of hard. Obviously, we talked about this in the previous show about COVID and a lot of teams having to walk that thin line about, being in practice, doing certain things. So the chemistry might not be there as much as you would like for certain teams. Also, injuries. I mean, they had a shortened
Yeah.
preseason this year. So a lot of guys are getting banged up because they're trying to just now getting into the swing of things of being in a regular season, because without having those 3-4 preseason games to fall back on, and even though the starters usually don't play as much, they still get reps. They still get the game speed and the game flow of things. So everybody's kind of still learning to fly, but there's no excuse for a lot of these guys. I mean, Mike Evans is a fantasy flop. I mean, he had 1 point, 10 yards.
Right.
For somebody to be the lead receiver for Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay, they outdueled Green Bay, like I just touched about a minute ago, 38-10. And you talking about your number one receiver had 1 point, which is 10 yards? I mean, that's pathetic. On the flip
Right.
side, I can go on the other way. You talk about the San Francisco game where they played the LA Rams. My guy, Cooper Kupp, who is their all-world receiver, who is like 70% catches, had 1.1 fantasy, which is 11 yards.
Right.
So, I mean, it comes and goes the week. Obviously, like I said, Zeke had 4 points. That's a bust. I mean, these guys are elite
Well, yeah,
players.
I mean, and Zeke, there should be no excuse with those fumbles. I mean,
No.
You're an elite player. How do you drop the ball twice in that manner in a game like that? I mean, it wasn't. Both of them were like routine runs that you should have completed.
Exactly. And I mean, you got to protect the ball. That's not even a question. I don't care about the offensive line being banged up. I don't care about Andy Dalton being a quarterback. You're a running back. You need to figure that out. Hold on to the football.
Yep.
I'm sure he'll learn by the next game and he'll figure things out, but Dallas is in a world of trouble regardless. It ain't really just Ezekiel Elliott's fault. They got more problems than that. Fantasy, I guess, favorites this week. I mean, Derrick Henry ran through the Houston Texans. 200 and something yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this guy is unreal. Yeah. Unreal. I mean, biggest. It looks like he's bigger than a linebacker. I wouldn't say a linebacker. Looks like an offensive defensive lineman running in a running back position. I mean, that's how your running back is supposed to play.
Yeah, he had one run for like 78 yards or something like that?
Yeah, right off of scrimmage. Boom, right through the hole. It couldn't catch him. It couldn't do anything with him. I mean, you're not always going to get that from everybody in the running, but I mean, that's the type of running, the players need to give you, for your fantasy team if you can. Same game, Deshaun Watson had a monster game, even though he came from behind and wound up going up for a little bit, but they wound up losing the game. But fantasy-wise, I think he had around 32 points. Tom Brady had a great game. He had a lot of points for fantasy. And Phillip Rivers, old man Philly, had a great fantasy game, even though that game was god-awful. Him and the Indianapolis Colts and the Bengals squared off in a high-powered offensive game. But nonetheless, fantasy-wise, he balled out, so you can't really say nothing. And then also rookie Justin Jefferson for Minnesota Vikings had another stellar game. That is a fantasy pick. If it's still in the waiver wire, I would assume people need to get, but at this point, I doubt that he's on anybody's league sitting there waiting. But he looks like a player from out of LSU.
Yeah. So with that, we can press right on into looking ahead for NFL Week 7, and kind of what that looks like. So let's start here. We talked about, you briefly kind of mentioned some of these players, but some of these teams. I'm gonna just start right at the top. Thursday's game, Giants Eagles. Philly's favored by 4. So 43.5 over under.
Well, let's talk about this whole division before we get into that. The Giants, Eagles, the lonely Cowboys, like we just spoke about, and the Washington Redskins. Both
Football
teams are,
team.
yeah,
Football team. They don't have a
Washington
name.
football team. Whatever. They're terrible. Whatever I call them, they can deserve. So at this point, the Eagles and the Giants are squaring off, like you just said, and the Washington football team and the Cowboys squaring off. So the NFC East is going to be there to do their thing in this terrible division. So with that being said, I believe that the Eagles probably have the upper advantage in this game. They have a better defensive line. They have the better quarterback, despite how terrible he's been. They do get Deshaun Jackson back, who does murder the New York Giants. That is the only thing that he really gets down on when he plays.
Yeah.
He kills the Giants. But I would think that they were probably getting a little bit more healthy. Their offensive line is a little bit banged up, but the Giants don't have anybody that's going to be able to penetrate that offensive line. So personally, I probably would take the Eagles in this game. And honestly, at 43.5, I actually would take the over. I don't.
Yeah,
really,
both defenses are bad, so
bad, very bad.
I could see that. I could see that happening.
Very bad.
And the Eagles by 4 or more. That's a possibility. Scrolling down, Lions Falcons. We can skip this one if you like. They got ATL by 2.5. The over under is 57 points. Yeah. They do know Matt Ryan's still the quarterback in Atlanta, right? Just because they got a good new coach doesn't mean they got a new quarterback.
All right, they're betting that the Lions' secondary is going to be terrible. But,
I mean, Julio Jones scored his first touchdown this season last week.
He did. He actually scored 2. And Calvin Ridley has been playing pretty well for the team. It could go over. I do think the Lions are going to have an advantage. Matt Stafford didn't play as well. That was one of my fantasy pickups that I actually had. He only gave me 13 points. But I do think with this Atlanta Falcons terrible defense, I think that he'll be able to have a little bit more. They have a lot of receivers on that side, as well as an up-and-coming running back in DeAndre Swift, who I will be starting this week. But I do think that they will be able to score in Atlanta, and possibly Atlanta the same way. I probably would take a 2.5 with the Lions, honestly, because they have a little bit better defense than Atlanta does. I think Atlanta played hard last week just because of the fact that their coach was fired. They finally got a little bit of freedom, kind of played up because they felt loose, but it's going to come crashing down. Atlanta's Atlanta, so
yeah.
If you had to bet, I'd probably take the 2 points. I'd stay away from the total. 57 is way too high.
Way too high for those two. Yeah. Keeping it moving. Browns, Bengals. Do we know is Case Keenum the starter for this week? Or are they going back Baker?
I think they are going with Case Keenum. If that's the case, you can go ahead and put the Bengals in there. Case Keenum is not. Case Keenum is not the guy, and they are not going to respond to it. They might have a better showing than 7 points, but I don't unless Jarvis Landry becomes a quarterback for a few plays, or Odell can throw the ball, so Odell could play quarterback too. But Case Keenum is back there. I don't see anything getting done. I'd probably take
and for anybody on fantasy looking to pick up a quarterback on the low, don't sleep on Joe Burrow. I mean, I've got 2 quarterbacks right now, so I feel like I'm in a good spot. But if one of them gets hurt, I wouldn't mind picking up Joe Burrow off the waiver wire. So somebody absolutely needs a quarterback this week. If your team has a bye, don't sleep on Joe Burrow.
And you got to think too. I mean, Cincinnati. That's in the same state. I mean, it's not a very far drive, if not a flight. I don't know. I've never been to Ohio. I don't plan to go. But either way, the Bengals and the Browns are not very far from each other. It's not like they're going to have to travel a lot. It's not like it's an divisional in-state rivalry game.
Yep. If
the Bengals are going to get a win, this is the time to do it. I would probably take the 3 points with the Bengals right now. I think that total will probably drop by then. If you're going to bet it, I'd probably bet it now, because once people know that Case Keenum is starting and they really get wind of it, they're going to be betting the Bengals all day long.
Yeah, that line's going to move. All right. This should be an interesting one. 2 undefeateds. Steelers-Titans in Tennessee. We just talked about Derrick Henry and his ability to run like a madman. But the Steelers defense is no joke either. So there should be an interesting little matchup there.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I personally, I'd probably take the Titans in this game. I know Pittsburgh has played well. Big Ben plays well at home. And even though they have been undefeated this year, it hasn't really been Ben doing a lot of stuff. The one problem I do find, though, with this Tennessee Titans game is that Taylor Lewan, their all-world left tackle, is hurt. And that could bring very big problems for Ryan Tannehill this week. Probably not as much Derrick Henry because they can throw him out the ball out of the flat. But in terms of pass rush, TJ Watt is going to be on Ryan Tannehill's ass all game long.
Yeah, I can see that. They say Pitt by 2, over under 52. I can see the sliding over.
I could too.
I can see it sliding over. But I'm with you, maybe leaning towards the Titans, pulling it out for a field goal win. But we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that line and see if that one moves. Panthers Saints. This is actually, on paper, it seems like it should be a good game, but it really, I don't know. This is a trap game for me.
Yeah,
Only because I don't know what Drew Brees I'm going to get. And I have Drew Brees on my fantasy team, so I've been watching him like a hawk all season. And I don't know which one I'm going to get.
if you're going to back the Saints at any point, this is probably the game to do it. They had a bye. Drew Brees, towards the end of the year, is going to fade. We all know about his arm declining, especially throughout the season as the later it gets. But him coming off of a bye, playing at home, him not having to travel even off that bye is big. They'll get Michael Thomas back unless he beats somebody else up in practice this week. So I think that once he has his receivers, he's got another week to get people healthy. I think that'll help. Teddy Bridgewater is a great story. I think him coming back into New Orleans is going to be big for him. He might play well. I just don't think that the Carolina Panthers are good enough right now as constructed.
Yeah,
Chris McCaffrey is supposed to be coming back, but not this week. So I don't know if that'll be enough.
Yeah, I'm leaning New Orleans. I don't know about a full 7.5 again, just because I don't know which Drew Brees I'm getting. But I could see the 51 points going over.
I can see that.
I could definitely see that one in that game. Buffalo is minus 13 with an over-under of 46.
Win. Either bet Buffalo or don't bet it. Just keep going.
They pretty much said the Jets aren't going to score again.
Right.
Dallas, Washington, Dallas by 1. This is another trap game for me because both teams are incredibly terrible, like ridiculously sad. I don't even think I would bet this game personally. Washington's at home. They are rivals. It's a division game. Andy Dalton looked terrible, but Washington is just as bad. Like, I feel like this game's going to end on like a pick six or a defensive fumble by some team. I don't feel like it's going to be good football at all there.
I'd blindly bet the Cowboys. I'm saying that as I bet them last week and they killed my parlay, only because of what I saw Monday night. They looked god-awful. They cannot get worse than that. They can't. And with all that time, you can't get worse than that. I get what you're saying, but the only thing that could get worse is if the score is higher than it was. But either way, it doesn't matter. They were embarrassed on national TV. And I can tell you right now, despite not having the talent, Jerry Jones is not going to accept this. And they're going to have to fix this because if they don't, their coaching staff and people are going to have to get fired. Because right now, this looks awful. Yeah, Washington is not good enough at all. Washington is not a good team. Their defense, their front is good, which might bode a little bit tough for Andy Dalton. But if you're going to ever bet on the Cowboys, this is the week to do it. I'll just say that. especially with a
Yeah.
1-point spread. I mean, they all have to do is win the game. So
Yeah, I don't ever put my money on Dallas ever in my life, so I'm gonna keep mine in my pocket. But hey, other people, you free to do whatever you want to do with your
I
money.
probably need to do that too. But I'm just saying, if you
I'm
are a
just saying
Dallas
there's some
backer,
other games. Yeah, there's some other games you could throw in a
yeah,
parlay
of
that
course.
you
If you're
know.
a Dallas backer, this is the week. But just hey, go at it blindly because I'm not.
Yeah.
It's up to you. I'm not suggesting it. Don't get mad at me because they're terrible.
Yeah, Packers, Texans. After that horrible loss, I would imagine Aaron Rodgers is going to come out swinging
Yeah,
in Texas. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Texans obviously their O line is already kind of damaged. Their secondary has been damaged. Um, so I could foresee. Obviously, they have Green Bay by 3.5. This over under at 57 is kind of weird, just because Houston doesn't score a lot of points like that. Um, and I do see Green Bay coming out aggressive, like super aggressive.
I do too. I mean, you said it pretty much how I would say it. It's Packers all day. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not. He got outclassed um, on Sunday against Tampa Bay, and
Yeah,
I don't see that happening again. I really don't.
yeah, that was ugly.
I mean, yes, trust me. I mean, the offensive line has to play better for them. Everybody had to play better for them. But that was the first game back with Devontae Adams. I think another game under his belt. Texans not having a very good secondary. I think they're to exploit this very much. As long as they can neutralize J.J. Watt, I think they'll be fine.
So then the battle of the running quarterbacks: Seahawks at Arizona. Seattle by 3.5, over under 56. I see this as being a high scoring game. Obviously, it's a divisional game. Seattle's 5-0, Arizona's 4-2. This will actually be a good one to watch.
Very good. Very good. And might as well blindly bet the over. I don't really see anything else other than that. The Seahawks played excellent football and they're undefeated, but every game they play is close. So I can't take the Seahawks by any amount of points only because their games always come down to either a point or a field goal. So
Yeah.
I kind of stay away from there, even though they might be a better team. But this game is going over. So that's the only advice I could give anybody on this game. And I probably will be betting. Well, I know I will be betting that because, I mean, these are the kind of games you'd be okay with. Not want to say be okay with losing your money to, but you can understand. You understand that you have to bet it over on this game. You can't take it under on this game unless you know something that I don't know. you got to take it over on this game. I mean, this is a perfect setup for it over. No pass rush for either team. No secondary for either team. Why not?
Yep. So yeah, I definitely with you on that one, taking that over. Chiefs, Broncos, Kansas City by a cool 9.5 and the over under at 48. Again, they're saying that Broncos aren't really going to score a lot, which is to be expected. So yeah, I'll take Kansas City for the win. I don't know about the 10 points. In Denver in the cold. But even though, I mean, Kansas City's from a cold place too, but still going into Denver, winning by big numbers, maybe. But
it's different. I wouldn't touch that game, to be honest with you. Kansas City, that is going to be a second road game, coming all the way from Buffalo, New York to Denver. Denver always plays Kansas City tough. Always.
Yeah.
Always. Especially when they're in Denver. Now, there's no fans, so that might be a difference, but a Mile High City is very tough to play in. 40 under 48 could be a possibility, but at the same time, if you don't want to do that, if you're gonna bet and you're gonna take, I would be weird at 9.5 points. Kansas City's gonna win the game, but I'd be very weary of that 9.5 points. I'm not telling you to bet either way, but I probably would stay away from that game personally.
Yeah. Another one, money wise, well, I don't bet on the 49ers anyway, but 49ers Patriots, they got New England favored by 2.5 at home with the over under of 44. So a very low scoring close game. which is to be expected. Um, Patriots still not 100%. Obviously, they've had to miss a game, and then they've been dealing with injuries, and then dealing with COVID. Um, so who knows exactly how they're going to come out? The 49ers are banged up and terrible. Um, and it just so happened that the Rams were bad, but um, yeah, I don't know how I could bet this game.
Um, I don't know. I'm still dealing with that myself. On one hand, I could say the Patriots look like more of the favorite in this, only because playing in Foxborough is different. Obviously, it's a lot harder than being at home. They got to go across country now. It does favor the San Francisco 49ers because they're not playing a early game at 10 o'clock. They're playing a 125, 105 game. So that's a little bit better. It's normal time for for a West Coast team. Um, Problems obviously are Jimmy Garoppolo used to play for Bill Belichick. He knows everything about him. Vice versa. He's been on the team. He knows their philosophy. So I
Yeah,
would
but I
say
don't
more
even.
advantage.
And I think the team is still weighing how much Jimmy G is going to play and how ready he really still is to play.
Right.
And so we get a hefty dose of CJ. Yeah, I don't know.
No. If CJ even thinks about playing, it's over. Just take the New
Yeah, just
England
take the Patriots.
it's over. I mean, and I'm actually leaning towards the Patriots regardless because I don't. Bill
Yeah, I mean
Belichick is
most.
gonna take away Kittle. He's gonna
Yeah, and
try his
most is
best.
hurt, and most is
Exactly.
hurt. So I mean, you're looking at two young. I mean, McKinnon's not even 100%. So you got what is it, Jeff James Jr. and Hasty, these
Yeah.
other two young running backs. So, and I mean that's Shanahan's number one go to is the running game, and then he backs it up with Kittle. And if Belichick takes Kittle away, then the running game, yeah, I don't know. This is leaning very Patriots ish for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would probably the 2.5 points. I'd probably grab the 2.5 points for the Patriots. I mean,
Uh,
it just sets up more. I mean, the coaching battle is more of the thing also, and
right.
we already know the the situation with that. Bill Belichick is going to outcoach Shanahan.
Oh
So
yeah, all day. Jacksonville is going into Los Angeles against the Chargers. They got Chargers by 8. Over under is 49. Again, just I'd say the Chargers flat out for the win. I'm not taking the points just because both teams are bad. Um, but a home game, I'm just blindly taking the Chargers. I have no other reason to take them
I
other
think
than
the
they're at
Chargers.
home.
I think the Chargers will win. I don't think that they'll cover the 8. I do think that it'll be a over game. The Chargers do have a good defense in the inside. If Gardner Minshew can get on the outside, get the ball to DJ Chark, um, Keenan Cole, get their running back James Robinson involved. I think that they can compete with the Chargers. I would probably take the Jags with the points, but more importantly, I'd probably take the over. I do think it'll be a pretty high scoring game. Just because, I mean, Jacksonville doesn't even play defense. Let's just be honest. They don't play
Mm-hmm.
defense at all. So as long as they can generate points against the Chargers, which I believe they can, this game's going way over.
Yep. Bucks and your Raiders in Vegas.
Sunday
Tampa
night
favorite.
football, baby.
Yeah.
Sunday night football.
Hey, you guys do not do well on Sunday nights. Um,
We don't do well on any day. Sunday night, Sunday days, Thursday, Monday.
they got Tampa by 3, over under 53. I can see the over under happening. I actually want you guys to win this game. Um, Personally, will it happen? I don't know. I'm pulling for the Raiders, honestly, and it's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Well, I'm always pulling for the Raiders. I'm just realistic about it. This game, I don't know if they can win. I feel that they can hang with them early, and then it'll get ugly later. If they can bring
Yeah,
pressure on Tom Brady, they might have a chance, but that's going to be up to Max Crosby, Cleveland Farrell, the inside players that they have. I just, they may have to run a lot of blitzes at Tom Brady, get him off his game, but, I don't know what
yeah,
they've done during the bye week. I saw that Marcus Mariota is coming back.
yeah.
That's not really helpful.
It's not a
Uh,
good sign.
no.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I know John Gruden does his best to prep for Tampa as best as he can. And he always likes to try to have a good showing when he plays against that team.
Right.
But this Tampa team is like knowing that he's ever really seen, and I think this Tampa team is starting to get into a little bit of a groove. Um, so that's going to be the thing. I mean, we're going to see, what comes out of it. I like again for reasons I won't talk about on the show, pulling for the Raiders. But it's going to be a tough Sunday night there. Monday, Chicago Bears take on the Rams, and at the Bears might be the worst 5-1 team. Like that, I don't know how you say that. Like they only have one loss, but I feel like they're the worst one loss team.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but at the same time, I understand why they're winning.
Yeah,
They played smash mouth old school football. They don't have, and it's not because of, that's the way they want to play. It's just because they don't have the talent to play any other way.
right.
They run the ball, they do short intermediate passes, and let their players run. It's kind of like a West Coast offense, I guess you could say, because they don't really throw the ball deep. Um, and their defense, despite the fact that it doesn't look great, has stopped a lot of people.
Yeah,
So with that being said, this is really going to come down to Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, and the offensive line of the LA Rams. One thing that I found out or I learned about, well, I didn't learn it today, but or Sunday night, I should say, but Jared Goff might be the worst quarterback if you run at him. When he has a clean pocket, he can hit anybody in the world. If you give him any type of pressure, he has no idea what to do.
yeah,
So, with that being said, if Khalil Mack has a Khalil Mack game, if Akeem Hicks does his thing, Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith, if they can attack him in the middle, he's going to throw the ball all out of bounds to nobody. I witnessed that against the San Francisco 49ers, who
yeah,
don't even have a pass rush, but they still somehow bothered Jared Goff, and he
yeah,
could not hit anybody. So, depending on that, and then of course the offense of Nick Foles, and if anybody that can generate any offense with David Montgomery, who was another running back that I have, I could see the Bears coming in there and actually beating the Rams, but I'm not going to bet it because I honestly don't know. I would actually look to the under in the game, because let's be honest, the Rams do have Aaron Donald, who is probably the only person I can imagine that's better than Khalil Mack and on defense. And they also have Jalen Ramsey. And if they play anywhere close to their ability, I don't see the Bears scoring any points either. So this might be a 17-16, 17-13 type game. So the under 45 looks real healthy to me.
got you. Yeah, I'm there as this being a low scoring game too. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, Vegas is saying the Rams, but I have a feeling it may go the other way.
I would take the
Uh,
5.5. I would take the 5.5 by the Bears.
yeah. All right, so that wraps up, NFL Week 7. We'll see what happens over there. Hopefully, some of us make some money. Who knows? Other action that just recently happened. Lopez Lomachenko if you did not see it, I didn't, but you did.
I did.
Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, lightweight title fight. And Lomachenko was, well, I guess, upset in some people's minds. But there are some people that knew that Lopez was going to come out and handle business. I don't know. You tell me what you saw.
I saw a hungry fighter. Timofimo Lopez is better than people give him credit for. I mean, the guy is going to be one of the next, I guess, showstoppers in boxing for his weight class, at least. He came out and, I mean, for at least for the first 5, maybe 6 rounds, he put it to Lomo. Gave him everything he had. Lomo didn't have really a lot to give him. After that, once he kind of realized that he was losing the fight, he started fighting, a lot better. Lomachenko started throwing and giving some combinations, and he started to crawl back into the fight. But once, Timofimo Lopez actually saw and realized that what Lomachenko was doing, he decided to be aggressive. His dad actually, who was in his corner, told him, kind of back off. It's okay. Take it easy. Like, we got this fight won. And he was like, no, I'm going to keep going and turn it up in the last 2 rounds, and actually won the last 2 rounds to secure his win. So, I mean, look, that was one of the best fights, at least the best fights they could have shown all this year, and they did not disappoint. The undercards were great. But, Timofimo Lopez is now a champion, has another belt, I should say. And, I mean, honestly, I think he needs to figure out and fight somebody in a bigger stage, because this kid is going to be a star. And, a lot of these other fighters, obviously not Pacquiao or Mayweather or anything like that, but, I mean, Danny Garcia, Earl Spence, any of those fighters, what I'm saying, that that are looking for fights, I think this kid would be somebody that they need to look towards, because, I mean, he might not be, like I said, on the Canelo and all that other type of range, but he's getting there. He's coming up fast, and, beating Vasily Lomachenko is probably the best step he could get to, because as we did see, I mean, Lomo was rated pound for pound the best boxer in the world.
Yep.
So, I mean, regardless of the fact that he fights on ESPN all the time and doesn't want people to pay, I think it's great because you get to see things like this. But Lopez is going to be on pay-per-view fights very, very, very soon, and he needs to be, because this kid has all type of heart. But, if you didn't see the fight, I would suggest you go back on demand and watch it on ESPN, because that fight was something else, along with all the other cards too.
Yeah. And then I just was reading earlier today that they said Lopez Lomachenko 2 will happen. So,
even better. Even better.
Yeah. So that, and I'm gonna guess that that's gonna be on a big network.
I'm sure it is. I'm hoping it's not, so I don't have to pay any more for it. But if all I can say is, everybody that's watching this, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, go back and watch it, because it's worth every bit of it.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, we touched on this briefly, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, just because. I mean, we like baseball, but we're not huge baseball fans. The World Series is currently underway. The Los Angeles Dodgers are taking on the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. As the recording of this show, I think the Dodgers are currently beating them in Game 1. And I have a good feeling they're going to go ahead and wrap this series up rather quickly. I know Tampa is capable of scoring a high number of runs, but the Dodgers pitching is probably just going to be a little too much for them. This is how LA was able to even get to the World Series. They forced a Game 7 with Atlanta, who was up 3-1. They were up 3-1. And if, any of us know, 3-1 is a very hard thing to come back from, but it happens, and it's sad and it's rough when it happens to you. And so the Atlanta Braves, you are now the most recent recipient of a 3-1 comeback loss, in which the Dodgers went ahead and made their way to the World Series. The Rays beat the Astros 4-2. And I don't know. That's really, I mean, kind of all I have to say. We'll see how this plays out. I don't have a favorite in this. Um, the blue team's gonna win
Yeah.
somehow. The
Yeah.
blue team's gonna win, and that's really all I got on the World Series because
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much either. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I mean, the baseball for me this year has been a little bit rough, especially with the fact there's no fans. Obviously one of my favorite things to do, especially when watching baseball, is going to the stadium, sitting down, hanging out with friends, eating, kicking it for about 3 hours, drinking, all that fun, good stuff. But without having that and not being able to do that right now, it's been a little bit hard to watch on TV. I know that it's a
right,
World Series, and I, will tune in at least to some games that I can. But I'm gonna be honest, even though I don't want the Dodgers to win, I think this is their year. I mean, they've had so many upsets, obviously in the World Series, and just trying to get there. So I think it's about time. LA already won a championship with the NBA and the Lakers, and might as well just go ahead and cap it off and do another one, get that town, going again. But hey,
yeah.
we'll see. Speaking of LA, LeBron was in Vegas doing his rounds and everything like that. I saw that. Good for him, MVP.
Yeah,
But
might as well celebrate however you can. You did your thing, so feel free to celebrate. Yeah, I mean, other than that, right now we're all patiently waiting for the NBA offseason and whatever dates and deadlines they're going to let us know about the draft and when the next season is going to start. And obviously, when that happens, we'll be right here with you guys to give you all that information, and we'll have updates on that. But for now, just kind of keep an eye on lottery drafts and what your team may or may not be doing for the draft. I know I'm keeping a close eye on my team because we're going to be a lot
number
better
two
than people
pick.
think. Yeah, we're going to be a lot better than a lot of people thought or thinking because they have slept on us. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, in terms of that, that's the show. That's it. That's all we got this week. As every week and as we say, you can always follow us, the Hella Flagrant Podcast. You can find it on every major streaming network. We're on all of them. All you have to do is search hashtag Hella Flagrant and we will pop right up. So wherever you not listening or watching this and you want to listen or watch it on another platform, search hashtag Hella Flagrant and it's right there. You can find it.
Yeah, or go to www.theflagrantfoul.com. We also have, different things, stories that we write. Obviously, the betting segment, if you need to just, kind of look at that. If you're not listening to the show, I mean, you obviously are listening to it now, but if ever you can't listen to it, you want to just check on the internet, and it should be up there. But we got a lot of amazing stories. So, I mean, everything, check it out. Obviously, our Instagram pages, Flagrant Foul. We're everywhere. We're trying to get these shirts, obviously, out to y'all pretty soon. But yeah, we're here. Hella Flagrant, the podcast, man. This is us. Keep following us, keep subscribing, keep doing our thing.
Yep. So on that note, we will catch y'all on the next one. Hella Flagrant, the podcast. We out.
Peace.